Welcome back to Scouting the League. Neil Stratton here with Rick Saratella of All Access Football. Just wanted to ask Rick, who's looked good after 2 days of practice here at the American Bowl in Orlando?
Yeah, you know what, Neil? We got history in the making. The first ever American Bowl, very well organized and great roster for a first-year event. So, we'll start off with quarterbacks because everybody wants to know who the best-looking quarterback is all the time. I got to say, Ethan Kaliak-Manis, the Rutgers product, he has carried his momentum from the Hula Bowl where he had a very solid week, and he's doing well here again, especially in that short to intermediate part of the field, which is what you need to do to be an NFL quarterback. So I like the accuracy, I like the consistency. He's made vast improvement this past year at Rutgers. So Ethan Kaliak-Manis is a guy I think that's going to have a really hard, long look at the next level. Cyrus Allen, probably the biggest moneymaker here from Cincinnati, fastest player in attendance. Nobody can guard him all week long. He's just leaving corners in the dust, unguardable. 13 touchdowns this past year at Cincinnati. Just goes to show the playmaking ability of Cyrus Allen. I think he's worked his way into a draftable grade now after this week. And then Donovan McCulley from Michigan, lengthy wide receiver, came in at 6'4", and he's just been making plays all week long. Very strong route runner. I've been impressed despite the size. His footwork is good. He's a lean 6'4", and I'll tell you what, this guy goes across the middle, probably could be a nice red zone threat at the next level. Maximizes opportunities. Bryce Underwood, as you know, freshman quarterback, was kind of up and down, but McCulley really made the most of the situation. All right, over on defense, TJ Guy, another Michigan Wolverine, who's kind of been a forgotten man, was more of a rotational guy, but 7.5 sacks 2 years ago, 12.5 sacks for his career, and he has the adequate bend. And that's something you want to see. Size, bend, blue blood program. I think teams are going to want to work with this guy as a developmental pass rusher. And then Corday Seidner, it was good to see him out here. I checked in on him in August back in training camp. He was 280 pounds. He weighed in here at 259. And I think he really wanted to showcase his pass rushing ability because he's an inside-outside versatile defensive lineman, but with the lost weight now, I think teams are going to view him more as a edge rusher rather than a defensive tackle. So Corday Seidner, the Bronx product from NYC, got to show him some love, Neil.
No one else is out here watching the practices, putting together best lists, and doing all the things that Rick's doing. Make sure you're checking out All Access Football. We'll be on the road in Frisco later this week, in Mobile the following week. Watch for more updates on Scouting the League.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Scouting the League, a great check-in with Rick and Neil, who were on site live in person down at the American Bowl. Looked like a nicer weather there than what we're expecting down in Frisco. Man, some interesting reports coming out. So throw the chains in the back of your cars if you're headed down there, and make sure you got maybe an extra layer of clothes. But either way, we're gonna talk a little more American Bowl, All-Star games in general. We're gonna get to the new look Dolphins, the best draft, which is coming up at the Combine for Inside the League and Neil, and more than that. But first, head over, like, subscribe, share this podcast wherever you're listening and watching. Give us those 5-star. The biggest thing in 26, share this with a friend as we continue to grow, set records in the scouting podcast industry. Maybe there's not a ton of them out there, but we will take whatever plaudits we get. Some great feedback at the end of 25, starting off 26 strong. So make sure you're doing that. Help us out. Give us both a follow. Of course, I'm Rodrik David at RightStepADV is where you can find me. Check out my website, rsafootball.com, for all I do, my background and everything there. Neil Stratton is along for the ride today. It feels like forever since we've gotten to do this in person, on Zoom, over the video, live together. But Neil, of course, is at Inside the League. InsideTheLeague.com is his website. His blog is succeedinfootball.com, so make sure you check that that out. If you're a scout or aspiring scout, make sure you check out thescoutingcommunity.com for all the resources, sources, networking, development, everything we are doing to help scouts out and aspiring scouts. And make sure you check out our partner over at bluemaca.com for the insoles that will upgrade every pair of shoes you have. Use code SCOUTING20 at checkout to let them know we sent you and to get a little discount on that order. That is bluemaca.com, code SCOUTING20. And if you haven't yet make sure you have your calendar set for the Inside the League seminar, February 25th, 5:30 p.m. Eastern in Indy. Scouting the League will be live streaming the event on Twitter and YouTube, so make sure you check it out. If you can't make it, if you are family, if you're friends, if you're just curious of what actually goes on at the Combine outside of the Lucas Oil Stadium, make sure you check it out. So February 25th, we will be live. Neil, I'd imagine you are still busy getting ready for the seminar while also traveling to all these all-star games. Welcome back. It's good to see you and be doing the podcast back together again.
It's good to be back. It's good to be in one place. I came back a little early from Orlando. Just a lot of decisions to be made, a lot going on for the Combine. Heard lots of good stories, though, while I was out. Saw a lot of good play. Really impressive. I think 2 weeks of all-star games that were both impressive. I've been around, or at least touched base with 4 of them so far, and still 2 to go, the 2 biggest, obviously. And looking forward to getting down to Frisco, packing an extra jacket, that's for sure. Looking for snow, and I don't have a whole lot of experience driving that stuff since I was in high school. So it may be an interesting couple days there, and then off to Mobile, where hopefully there won't be any snow for next week. So busy times, a lot going on, a lot of fun though. That's the best time to get out and see people and shake hands and reinforce relationships and make new ones too.
Yeah. Again, not overly surprising. You maybe get some ice, some cold winds in Frisco for it to get cold. Again, I don't remember what year it was. There's been at least one year where it was surprisingly cold in Mobile. So again, you have to stay prepared regardless of where you're at. Again, scouts are always prepared, right? Again, have the GM send you some extra gear. Hopefully you have a GM to send you some extra gear. We'll get to that though. But again, like you said, you've been out on the road. You hit the Hula, you hit the American, got some time at the CGS. Those are really the 3 we're going to focus on. We really talked about the 5 games, the 5 big all-star games, if you want to call them that. The CGS, heard a lot of good things. The Hula Bowl, again, maybe a bump or 2 at the beginning, but a strong game. And then again, a strong roster from the American Bowl. Kind of talk about your process and kind of your time at each of the games so far.
Yeah. So I was in Fort Worth earlier in the month. Obviously, I started off with the Hula Bowl. I guess we'll go one through last. Hula Bowl, and despite the hype, I thought it was really well run. Obviously, they had a little trouble getting pads in there on that first day. When you're the first game, you're going to bump into things like that. There are going to be a few organizational issues, and you can't always get the equipment guy on the phone because he's still enjoying his time off. So there were some challenges, but they got it there, and they got the pads in eventually, and I saw some decision makers there. Well, they benefit obviously from the fact they're in Florida, and there's a lot of scouts and a lot of executives that live in Florida, and so some of them made their way over. I thought it was a really representative job. I'm a big fan of Todd Worley. Todd did great. The hotel was fine. I thought all the parts were in place, despite some of the hype that you might have read out there on social media from a number of different channels. I thought it was a really good game. I hope that continues. CGS, Dream Bowl, both solid jobs. CGS obviously has a much bigger roster than any other game out there, and I think they had something like 212, 213 players. They always do. They'll have a number of players that are on 90s, and again, a very smooth job there. Dream Bowl, I was impressed with what I saw. Not as much of a scouting presence, if I'm being completely honest, but there were scouts there. I know I was there on a Saturday that I think they were kind of getting warmed up, no pun intended, for Frisco this weekend because it was freezing cold, and they still had practice outdoors in the wind at Little Elm High School. So anyway, good job there. And then American Bowl here this past last 4 days, and just a really impressive first year game. It's going to be on the NFL Network, I believe, Thursday. But what a great week of practice! What a great facility. The hotel there is just perfect for an all-star setting. They had some kind of math kids kind of convention there or something along those lines, and it was and there were kids everywhere, and still you could have kind of avoid them because the place is so big. Which brings to mind in the early 2000s when I first started on the combine, and Indianapolis still had a cheerleader convention in the RCA Dome, which is the predecessor to Lucas Oil. And so everyone's piling out of the combine. They're having to walk through these little girls made up in makeup. And Rodrik, you may remember this, little cheerleading outfits and that kind of thing, doing their vaults and their handstands and whatever amongst Belichick and Parcells trying to make their way through.
I don't know how old you think I am, Neil, that the RCA Dome was around when I was in scouting, but no, that was before my time.
Maybe you were in diapers when the RCA Dome was around, but some of us weren't. At any rate, it was American Bowl was great and got some great weather too, and just a very positive experience there. I'm excited about it. The debate rages on whether or not there's still room for, I guess, 6 All-Star games, counting them up in my head, maybe 7. Of course, the Chocolate Bowl went away this year. We're hoping it returns, but maybe it won't. Maybe the Dream Bowl kind of slots in there. In the era of the transfer portal, it's a real struggle to find quality players, and there are a few comments about maybe some of the rosters, and that's the way it is. But if you're serious about scouting and day 3 matters to you, and the DFA process matters to you, then you've at least got to go out and eliminate some players, get them scratched off, and at least get in front of some players and maybe hear their stories. Maybe it's endearing. Maybe there's a reason why they haven't gotten the looks that they deserve. And we'll talk a little bit more about the value of day 3 drafting a little later in this podcast. But as for this year, I thought the 4 games that are kind of below the big 2 all did a great job, and I'm excited they're still around. Hopefully they can remain. I know more than probably most the bleak financial picture you're facing when you're trying to run an all-star game. There's just no gate involved, and it costs money to broadcast these things, and so it's tough. It's just a tough thing, and you have to really want to provide opportunities for players. You have to love the scouting process and want to work with the league to do this kind of stuff. And so my hat's off to everyone running these games. They've all done admirable jobs, from Neil Malbone with the Dream Bowl to Jose and Craig at the CGS, Todd at the Hula, and of course Scott at the American Bowl. All good stand-up guys, and I'm happy with the job they did, and I think they deserve to be happy with it as well.
Yeah, again, it's an interesting mix of games. You get your tiers. You get your top 2. Again, getting ready for those. Those are only getting bigger, and again, it's not going to be long before I think we're seeing nice paychecks go out to come play in those games, and those will evolve as college football evolves. Again, they're going to keep up. The NFL and NFLPA, I think, are going to keep helping steer those in whatever subtle ways or not so subtle ways. And again, the CGS, a unique game in and of itself. And again, in the era where you don't expect a bunch of small school guys to be draftable or even day 3, again, UDFA quality players because of the portal, it still is a great chance to get maybe some of those surprise guys, traits guys, under the radar players that, again, for whatever reason, just haven't quite popped, haven't quite gotten the recognition they deserve. So again, absolutely valuable. The American and Hula, again, that was the feedback as I was talking to people on the ground, scouts on the ground, agents on the ground. It just felt like it was kind of 3/4 of an all-star game. Like, again, just something missing. And that's part of just the cannibalism of having a Hula, which again, dates back as old as any of them, has had its issues, ownership, again, obviously all that we know about, again, plenty out there about everything that the Hula Bowl has had to overcome. And again, a first-year game that set an extremely high bar for itself with, again, the roster they presented, with the way they did everything, and from all the sounds of it, really met that bar, but could have certainly, again, if you take the top 1/4 of players, top half of players, and from the Hula Bowl and add them into that American Bowl mix, again, it only makes that one that much stronger, that much better all-star game. So it is going to be interesting in a day and age where you want everybody to get their chance. You want opportunities for these players. Unfortunately, the business side of it, the NFL scouting side of it is, hey, there's only some of these guys that are going to actually play in the NFL, so it may be time to get a little bit leaner and meaner. Again, only time is going to tell on what lasts. And again, there are certain PR battles that the American Bowl certainly won this year, and Scott has that thing kind of greased up and rolling fairly well right now, which again is going to put really the onus, in my opinion, on the Hula Bowl to bounce back and come strong in 2027, 2026 season, 2027 All-Star game process. So again, we got them knocked out this year. We're rolling along, going to be exciting. You will be down in Frisco. You'll be down at Mobile. So if you're going to be down there, make sure you go find the tall guy, probably wearing cowboy boots, probably an extra jacket, and say hi to Neil. Let him know that you're a listener of the podcast. We always love to hear that when we're out on the road, out and about. Neil, while you were at All-Star games, some NFL teams kind of making their moves on GMs, on head coaches. We get another one, Kevin Stefanski in Atlanta, still missing a GM. You've got Matt Ryan in control of the roster, I guess, kind of looking that way right now. We're not going to talk about Atlanta. I'm not going to get up on that soapbox and do anything like that. We get John Harbaugh joining Joe Shane in New York. The one we're going to focus on is Miami. Really a full clean out, full rebuild there. John Eric Sullivan had been hired as the GM. They get Jeff Hafley hired as the head coach. Again, a looming offensive coordinator question now. But again, let's hit it from the big picture, really from the front office side. Obviously, Coach Hafley is going to be a part of it, but as you want to call it, fairly green NFL coach. Again, you probably put a lot on John Eric in this rebuild. So what are you expecting from John Eric, this front office, and kind of what you're expecting them to do?
Well, it's really interesting because if you look at the drafts that the Packers have had and you look at the drafts the Patriots have had, obviously the Patriots are not the Packers, but they do have Elliott Wolf and Alonzo Highsmith there. There's kind of a little bit of blueprint there that they followed that's very similar to what Green Bay has done. There are some definite characteristics, let's say, of how the teams are run and what they're looking for and all those kind of things. And I think those will probably be emblematic of what John Eric does. Now, John Eric's a guy with a great pedigree. His dad was a longtime wide receivers coach. He's been hailed as one of the best receivers coaches around for a long time. John Eric's a really engaging guy. Again, reminiscent of Elliott in that he's not one of these gruff kind of leave me alone old school types. He's a bit more of a people person and in a role that doesn't always demand those skills. I know that there's one former Browns GM who's got quite a Green Bay pedigree who's not nearly the people person that Elliott or John Eric are, but so hats off to John Eric and Elliott in that regard. You're also talking about a guy who's in John Eric who's got the respect of his peers. He's won 2 Bart lists, 22 and 2022 and 2025 just last year. So and they don't hand those out, and they both those awards he got a pretty good amount of the voting. So he's a guy that's kind of been in the pipeline for this for a long time. I think this is a real opportunity for him. Probably not this. I mean, I would presume that he's taken himself out of the running in some of his previous interviews that maybe he felt were the right opportunities, but I think this one is a good one. So what's he going to do? How's he going to operate, and what's going to be kind of the template there? I think there are a few things. Number one, whatever direction they go at quarterback, I think they're going to be patient. And I had a chance to speak to someone who was once in the Packers scouting department, and he had a talk with Ron Wolf, and Wolf compared it to buying insurance. You get a quarterback before you need one, in preparation for when you will need one, and hoping that they will be able to develop and be there when the time comes. Obviously, Jordan Love came in. There was some friction with Aaron Rodgers, just as there was friction for Aaron Rodgers when Brett Favre was there. There's a lot of overlap when it comes to Green Bay. I don't know what the future holds for Tua Tagovailoa. There's been a lot of speculation. Obviously, he's got a really big contract. They may keep him around if for no other reason that they've got to have someone veteran so they don't have to throw whoever their young guy is in the fat. But I expect them to at least attempt to draft a quarterback, and maybe 2 this year. I remember when Elliott and Alonzo first got into New England, what I kept hearing was, hey, we're going to draft two, and sure enough, they did draft two quarterbacks. They kept one, obviously, who's having quite a run in the playoffs right now, and they wound up trading another one. I could see the Dolphins doing that because I think they're going to treat the quarterback position with the kind of priority that a lot of teams say they will, but don't always do. Now, again, this is all pending a decision on Tagovailoa, and we don't know what that is at this point. So we're speculating a bit, but they will certainly make quarterbacks a high priority. Notwithstanding the fact that this is probably not the best draft to be doing that. If they don't draft a quarterback, I could see them maybe trading back. I think they're going to, if you look at the Packers, boy, you don't talk about stockpiling picks. So this is something interesting I found out. The last time the Packers picked 7 times in the draft, 2016. You got to go back 10 years to when they just said, and even then they'd had 2 6s and no 7. So even then they were jiggering their picks and trying to move up and do all those kind of things. Another thing, you and I hear, I think, Rodrik, so much about, well, it's a 7th rounder, well, it's a 6th rounder, a 5th rounder, that these picks are disposable. The Packers have drafted in the 7th round 12 times since 2022. That's amazing to me. In 4 years, on average, they're picking up 2 extra 7s in addition to their own every year. 7 times since 2017. 7 times they've had multiple 7th rounders. I mean, 7th rounders? Are you kidding me? Some teams, again, they almost use the 7th round as a joke. Meanwhile, the Packers are going out and getting starters sometimes, but contributors more often than not by doing that. And then if you look at the Patriots, and just last year, they had 3 7th rounders. Again, they're not the Packers, but they're led by a team that's well-versed in the Packer way of doing things. Another thing that I found and I thought was interesting, the Packers are real best draft types, okay? They're not afraid to spend value picks, quality picks, day 1, day 2 on low-impact positions. The Packers have a middle linebacker who was a first-rounder, and they've got a center, a nickel corner, and a slot receiver who are all second-rounders. I didn't have a chance to look at all 32 teams, but I can scarcely imagine that you'd find at those positions that many kind of quality picks invested, especially when there's this perception that you can go find those guys in UDFA or find those guys anywhere. And the Packers are going out and using real picks and not forcing on value. I mean, on the high value positions, they're taking the guys that are there, which I think has obviously done a lot for them. They've never won a Best Draft Award, but they're always in the running. And then finally, the Packers have always been willing to go out and either spend money or spend picks on plugging the big holes that they have. Obviously, Micah Parsons last year, Jacobs 2 years before, maybe 3 years before. I don't know how long he's been with them, but those guys have been solid contributors that came at a cost, and it wasn't draft picks. It was, well, in Parsons' case, it certainly was, as well as some quality players. For Jacobs, it was just money, but I think at some point they're not going to just kind of kid themselves and thinking they can solve problems in the draft. When they know they've got a need, they go out and they fill it, whatever it takes to do that. So I think that's what John Eric's going to look like. Obviously, he will put his own spin on things, but I think those are going to be some characteristics of how the Dolphins build their team. And we knew it was going to be draft dependent, but I think that's kind of maybe how they'll do things, at least if they continue to go down that road that's been successful for Green Bay.
Yeah. Again, you look at Green Bay's roster traditionally. Again, this is a team that heavy homegrown talent. Again, draft, develop, like you said, be patient. Now, having a good team allows you to be patient with some of these guys. Hey, we're going to play them here and there. And that is certainly something that, again, in today's day and age, as opposed to, again, 20 years ago, maybe it's easier 20 years ago than it is now in today's landscape with the media the way it is. And hey, everything is win now. But I think with a young head coach and, John Eric in their spots, again, I think that may be an indication from, ownership that, hey, we will give you we'll give you a little bit of runway to get this thing right, to get this thing back up and running. Cause that is, you could call it a joke about the Packers that, hey, yeah, they're not going to sign anybody in free agency. again, when they do, they've absolutely hit on those guys, and it's been franchise type trader changers. Micah kind of falls into that, that category, but obviously through trade. But this is going to be a homegrown roster that's going to take a year or two. And when that happens, again, to the draft conversation, you likely end up with a few more compensatories as well, which, again, there are NFL teams across the league that I could not care. Don't bring up compensatory draft picks. I've heard it myself. Don't bring up compensatory draft picks when it comes time to free agency, when it comes time to draft. That'll take care of itself. But there are absolutely franchises who factor that into every decision, because it is all part of the process. It's all part of the big picture, is getting those, again, whether it's a 3, a 4, a 5, again, maybe it's 4 or 5 total, because again, we're going to draft, we're going to find starters, we're going to find guys that are going to stick on this roster for at least their contract. And then again, we can let them go after that, but we're going to build this roster the way we want. We're going to bring in, for them, Miami Dolphins. We're going to have a Dolphin guy that we want. And again, I think they have a few. Again, in one of the interesting sound bites is, I think John Eric took 5 of them. Tua was not one of those, but we've got 5 guys we really see as cornerstone pieces. Drum up trade interest. Again, who knows what the level of that is, but he pinpointed 5 players he likes, going to build around, again, 5 good players. Obviously they've got a roster that's got to compete in that division. He knows that. He's addressed that. Win in the trenches. Yeah, everybody in the league is saying that. What it comes down to is, let's see what you do in free agency this year, and let's see what you do in the draft. Put your money where your mouth is. The proof is in the pudding. Again, he will have his challenge set out for him. And again, now that you've got Coach Hafley in there, you can start to get an idea defensively, get that down, get that clear for your scouts. Hey, this is what we need to go make sure we understand. Offensive hire is going to be important in this process now. Get that put in place. Again, I talked about it in yesterday's podcast, Neil. Again, you better hopefully have some pretty good clarity come second week of February, because when you get together for February meetings and then split, the scouts are not going to be back together until April. So you better let them know this is what we need to go find, the clear, concise plan that Green Bay is going to have. They'll probably get together in Miami with John Eric for at least a couple weeks to watch film, to go over these guys. It is going to probably be a little bit of a different experience for those scouts in Miami. Embrace it, love it. Green Bay's been really good, so you might want to embrace it. And again, obviously, we're seeing success up in New England with Elliott coming from that tree, Alonso coming from that tree. So going to be fun to see. But again, the Dolphins, they're maybe leading that group of a head coach and GM, kind of starting to get everything set. I would expect them to have that OC hire done fairly quickly, and let everybody else kind of follow after them.
So that 24 draft, we've seen 3 quarterbacks who've had a lot of success. Now, maybe not the one in Washington as much this year, but certainly Drake May and Caleb Williams have done a lot. We've got a quarterback at the top of this draft, and we don't know. Everyone's already penciling him in as a Raider, and there's probably a good chance that'll happen. But if it doesn't, who knows? Maybe the Dolphins reach up and try to take him and try to hand him some picks. We don't know that. But what we do know is, or at least what we expect, is we've got a clear number 1 quarterback in this draft class, Roddy. But who is he? Who is he really? Is he Joe Burrow? Is he Baker? Is he Drake May? Is he none of them? Who do you think is the best comp for Fernando Mendoza? Given what you saw last night, given what you've seen this season, what's your take on him?
Yeah. Again, fully expect Fernando Mendoza to be number 1 overall. I think the Raiders can start thinking about the rest of their draft, because to me, this is a fairly easy decision. Again, you want a tough, you saw toughness. You saw a dude that can take the hits. You saw a guy that can make back shoulder throws. You saw a leader in 2 years. Again, quite a 2-year run for Fernando, for Curt Cignetti, for that Indiana program. Neil, I'm going to go old school. And again, maybe this is a bias of having been around him, been around the team. I'm going back to Matt Ryan for Fernando Mendoza. And obviously I was not with the Falcons when they drafted him, but he was talked about, again, multiple times over the years. And again, I think about, I talked about Mendoza kind of middle of the year. Trait wise, this guy's not jumping off the tape. Like, he's got a good arm. He's got good arm strength. He can make the NFL throws he needs to. Again, I think he can win with his legs. He ran a pretty nice quarterback draw. He can take a hit. You're not going to ask him to do it a lot, but again, when the time comes, you better at least have game planned for it. What they talked about in Atlanta with Matt Ryan and what seems to keep coming up for Fernando is leadership, tough dude, smart processor. Guys are going to follow him. He's going to do everything the right way. And again, listening to Thomas talk about it, listening to some of the veteran scouts that were around for Matt Ryan, again, that was the same playbook for Matt Ryan. Took a Boston College team. Again, they achieved probably slightly more than the average Boston College team was supposed to. Traits were never going to jump off. You watch Matt Ryan run a 40, it's not going to be the prettiest thing. Matt Ryan's arm by the end of his career was certainly not real NFL worthy. Again, he really had to kind of get the Peyton Manning anticipation down. But again, you talk about a guy that you stick in at quarterback and can feel really good for the next 15 years as a leader of your franchise. To me, that's who Fernando Mendoza is and is going to be for the Raiders. And again, I'm sure plenty of people are going to point to a young Tom Brady, again, a guy coming out of Michigan that, again, little bit underlotted. Obviously, we know 199. Again, I think about Daniel Jones and again what he kind of resurrected. Had a good year in New York. Had a good year before getting hurt in Indianapolis. Again, I'm sure those comps are going to happen. But I'm going to go all the way back to Matt Ryan. Again, another number one overall pick that again has had a really good career and now stepping into a whole new role.
Rodrik, did something that really impressed me about Mendoza last night. Clearly, the game plan was not for him to win the game. I mean, they really relied on their backfield for 3 quarters. But when it came down to that 4th and 5, and they initially sent the field goal team out and they pulled them and went for it, did that really impressed me. Not only the leadership, but the grit. He should have been down on the 3, took a big shot, and still found his way in the end zone. Took another shot in the end zone. Did that, I don't know, does that play resonate with you? Does it make him, did it change the way you feel? Did you feel stronger about him? Did you feel like he's got more grit than I thought? I mean, or is it just another play to you?
Yeah, no, it's just another checkbox for him. Again, I go back to the beginning of that Ohio State game in the Big Ten Championship when he got absolutely clocked on the first play of the game. And you're kind of sitting there wondering, like, wow, are we going to see the backup here for the rest of this game? And obviously, we know what Indiana did in that one. Again, Miami absolutely came out with a game plan appropriately. We're going to beat him up. If he wants to run a fake, it is legal. Let's hit him. Again, I didn't think there was anything out of bounds in some of the shots he took when he was carrying out zone read fakes, really for no reason. Again, not expecting him to pull it really early in the game. But again, the quarterback draw, that doesn't change it for me. But again, like you said, they ran an offense. They stuck with the game plan. Huge credit to that entire coaching staff, really obviously on both sides. On the offensive side, hey, we're not going to get away from what has made us as good as we were. And again, what I would love to see on that draw play, again, you get the timeout, scouts in the building. What was Fernando right there lobbying for? Hey, let's do this. That is that element of scouting that you will never get from tape, that you will only get if you were there live. I would love to know, what was Fernando doing during that timeout? Was he done? Was he over on the sideline ready to go? Or was he in Kurt Cignetti's ear like, hey, let's run this one. Let's go get it. Let's go finish this thing. Again, that element of a quarterback leadership, ownership is something that, again, you love about that guy. Again, if it was his call, which again, I'm sure he was fired up about it, he made it work. You listen to him talk about it, zone on one half, man on the other half. They had it right. He had to make a cut. If he can make that cut again in the NFL, wow, good luck to you. But again, I don't think that he's going to run many draws in the NFL. But again, he made it work, and I would have loved to see him go for it. I was afraid that that 4th down punt in the 4th quarter that was going to give Miami the chance that the Hail Mary may come back and get him. But again, he did everything, and for 2 years, he's really done everything that he's needed to and has been asked to do. And again, at the end of the day, that's all you can ask a quarterback to do.
We didn't talk about this before we got on here, but I'm going to throw it at you anyway. thoughts on Carson Beck? Is he, is he an NFL starter? Is he an NFL backup? Is he a day 3 pick? Again, I know I'm kind of asking you to think on your feet a little bit here, maybe, but what's your take there?
Yeah, again, from a talent standpoint, he's got starter level traits. I think his arm, he's got a good enough arm. He's can make the throws. I think you see he's a little bit longer, linear guy. Again, probably a slightly longer release or longer delivery than you would like. But again, there's plenty of guys in the NFL that have been able to do that. For me, again, for quarterbacks, for any position, it really comes off to between the ears, leadership, all those things. And that's where in the last couple years, again, it's been a lot of mixed reviews on Carson. And that's where I think teams will have to do a lot of work. I absolutely think he gets drafted. I think he is an NFL backup. I think you are happy with him as a backup. Will he be happy as a backup? I don't know. To me, is it a bit of a Josh Rosen situation where either I'm going to be an elite quarterback at the top level or there's other things I can be doing with my life. Again, I don't know. Obviously, I haven't done the work. I got to read the reports on Josh Rosen. I don't know the insight on Carson Beck as a person, as a leader, as a guy in the room. Now that team certainly rallied around him. You saw the love again after the throw. Again, a guy that felt as bad as anybody. He had teammates around him, which tells you something about him. Is he probably an early day 3 draft pick? He becomes one of those guys, an older veteran. Maybe he's a developmental guy 2 or 3 years down the line, but is he an NFL starter? I'd imagine he's going to have a lot of 4th to 5th round type grades on him.
He took a real shot there towards the end of that last series. I mean, a real shot. Of course, maybe it was worth it because it got him 15 yards back and didn't put him in a 4th and 15. But that last throw, Rodrik, that's a tough throw. The safety's coming over. He's got the corner and trail. Was that a bad throw? Was it a throw that, man, would have been tough to complete? Is it a throw he should have not made? I mean, what are your thoughts there? Do you fault him for that?
Yeah, again, I think it's a bad read. Again, it's a cover 2 look. There's nobody holding that corner. Again, you've got an ISO on a big side of the field. There's really no reason to hold that corner. That corner has no reason to sit. It's, again, you talk about a really well-coached team. That is exactly what a corner is taught to do. Again, you don't have an underneath threat, especially late in the game like that. You don't give up the big play. Again, I thought it was a forced ball. You still had a lot of time. The Hail Mary's always in your back pocket. Again, really, you need to be at about the 50 to get it there. You can still move the ball down the field methodically. Again, you got a Malachi Corley kid that is really, or Malachi Toney, that's really good. Again, find the way to get the ball to him. That's where Miami's weapons, again, you could see that they looked a little gassed, a little tired. Again, I think you didn't quite have the elite weapons on the outside that Indiana did, that made some plays. I thought it was a forced football. Again, don't know what the read was, don't know what he was coached to do. Would love to go back and see that other side of the field. I'm sure I will when I get the film in here. But again, I thought, again, just from what I've seen replaying it was a forced football, bad read from Carson.
Okay, so let's move on to the NFL playoffs now that the college playoffs are over. There are 4 teams still alive. 3 of them, the Rams last year, and then the Broncos and the Seahawks before them, who have won Best Draft Awards. Not a coincidence, I don't think. The 4th, the Patriots, who have not won yet, are a finalist this year. Could take home the crown this year. We'll see. The finalists are, in addition to the Patriots, the Bears, the Browns, the Giants, the Panthers, and the Saints. Who gets your vote, Rodrik? Who had the best draft in 2025?
Man, this has been a tough one. I've really had 2 or 3 teams that really, honestly, probably 2 teams that have kind of continued to rise to the top. And that's the Patriots and Panthers. Again, those 2 have kind of been my top 2. The Browns had a really good draft. Again, you look at what they did. You got a bunch of snaps, quality snaps, starter level snaps from a bunch of guys. Again, Mason Graham, Schweschinger, Judkins, Fan in your top 4. You absolutely nailed those. But while you nailed those, for me, again, I can't take away from the fact that you drafted 2 quarterbacks, which created an absolute nightmare and mess for your team. Again, I can't get away from the again, you talked about the Green Bay way of drafting multiple quarterbacks. Well, that's when there's a clear plan and an established starter. Cleveland was such a mess at the quarterback spot. Obviously, it cost the coach a job. Again, you nailed the first four, but you hurt yourself drafting the two quarterbacks. Could one of them end up being the starter there? Yeah, maybe. But this year, which is what we're voting this award on at this point, again, it created so many issues for this team, so many distractions, didn't result in wins. Again, for me, it kind of eliminated Cleveland from this category, from winning it, from moving up, just because you didn't get your franchise quarterback, and that quarterback situation did create such a mess. So, Cleveland kind of the back end. The Giants, again, have to credit them. It looks like they got their franchise quarterback now. Again, being evaluated for 5 concussions, getting 1 in 10 games. I mean, I'm reserving judgment on this one a little bit. Again, Jackson Dart looked good when he was on the field. Again, result in a few more wins than maybe some people expected. Obviously, you got Abdul Carter, who gave you quality snaps, maybe not the production. Cam Scatabo. Again, is he ever going to be the same guy? He plays a reckless style. We know what running back shelf life is. Again, you got a starter in Marcus Imbo. Again, a good draft. You got your franchise quarterback, but again, didn't result in wins. Head coach got fired. Again, all things that play into it for me. So again, Giants, sorry, you're out. The Saints, again, another one, good, solid draft. Again, you get the starter at O-line and Kelvin Banks, Tyler Shuck. A good year. Again, you get some other guys down the road, Sanker, Stutzman, Riley, Neal. Again, this is one where, again, the Saints, it was kind of yes, you like them. They had a good draft, but it wasn't, they just got outdone by other drafts, perhaps. Again, you can't take away from this draft a good foundational draft for them, but to me, just wasn't quite what these other drafts were. Tyler, again, it's going to be interesting to see the bounce back. Again, can he take that next step? Again, maybe a year from now, we'll look at this draft and be like, hey, maybe it should have been New Orleans. But again, you talk about, again, a team in your division that, again, I think is in the top 2, had a slightly better draft. So again, not to take away from the Saints, but again, I think you just slightly got outdone. The Bears, again, come in, right in that next group. A draft class that helped elevate the quarterback, a draft class that is going to continue to have starters. Again, Loveland Burden obviously helped with Caleb Williams, Ozzie Trapia on the O-line. Shamar Turner played some good snaps. You got the running back that played well down the stretch. Again, you get some good pieces in place that are down the line. Again, another draft you can't take away from this draft. Again, you can't say a ton negative about this draft, but again, just one of those ones where, again, the top 2 teams in the Panthers and Patriots just had slightly better drafts. And so for the top 2, Neil, again, the Panthers had been my number 1 pick for most of the year. Again, you went out and made the deal for Bryce Young that you did as a franchise. Different GM, different head coach. Yeah, I get that. But again, you've now drafted with this class in 2025 a group that got Bryce Young looking like the Bryce Young that he was supposed to. And really, that's the big piece in Tet McMillan. On the defensive side, a bad defense, you went out and found 2 starters who were impactful. The Panthers won the division with this draft class. Again, not one that up and down was, again, wild. Wild production, wild numbers, wild anything like that. But again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 draft picks that were starters. Again, if you draft 4, you're usually happy. 4 starters. Again, you get 13, 17, 16, 17, 16, 17, 17 games started from this rookie class. Again, that's an outstanding draft. Again, it's going to be important for guys like Trevor Etienne to continue to develop. Again, it was a loaded running back group there. You expect Jimmy Horn to continue to develop. Again, Mitchell Evans at tight end, Lathan Ransom on the defense, those defensive linemen. Again, a foundational type of draft class that, again, really showed that this team can compete when nobody expected them to, and again, got that quarterback right. And again, ultimately the Patriots, though, man, surprisingly, the Patriots, for me, not a team that I thought a lot about the draft class. They would be my best draft winner this year. The Patriots, again, when you talk about, man, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 draft picks. Of those 11 draft picks, 1 played 4 games, 1 played 3. The next lowest number, 12 games. You got a ton of snaps from rookies. And again, just like we talked about elevating Bryce Young, a left tackle, a running back, and a wide receiver, another offensive lineman that all helped your rookie looking like franchise quarterback there in Drake May. Again, I thought Elliott, Alonzo, the whole group absolutely knocked this draft out of the park. Again, credit to the coaching staff. Josh McDaniels has brought these guys along. Mike Vrabel, can't say enough good things about him, about everybody in New England doing this thing. Again, you spent a draft pick on a long snapper and a kicker. Yeah, you put it out there and you have really good special teams units that did, great things all year. Again, you got a couple other guys who were on the roster and not just throwaways that we're not going to hear from. Again, you could be talking about 11 starters in a year from now that are part of this roster. Again, the Patriots absolutely knocked it out of the park. If I had a vote, if I was voting on this one, again, hopefully handing that award to Elliott, because I think the Patriots absolutely knocked this one out of the park.
It's a tough field, and we normally take 5 finalists. I just couldn't find a way to separate that 5 and 6. So I threw them both in there. There are other worthy candidates that I thought probably they at least earn the recognition of being a finalist, even if I felt they'd been a stretch to be the winner. We'll find out exactly what the scouts say on Wednesday, February 25th at the Indiana Convention Center. It'll be our 19th, 19th seminar, and we're looking forward to it. And we hope everyone can join us. It's free. Come on out and sit, have a seat, and enjoy it. It'll only take about an hour. We start early, 5:30. So if you're in town and you love this podcast and you love scouting and player evaluation, why not join us? I'd love to have you. It'll be a lot of fun. We'll keep it moving, and it's going to be just a fun night. There's a lot of people there, and it's a very positive thing. There's no game on Sunday. There's no pressure there, so it's a good time. And we hope everyone can
absolutely. Yeah, again, with this award, like you said, Neil, it's a scouts voted award, which again, that scouting recognition, they're going to recognize who scouts thought was the best draft here. Again, hopefully no ballot box stuffing, hopefully nothing behind the scenes shady. Again, this is an award that is recognized by scouts, but of course, Neil and I want to know what you listeners, agents, aspiring scouts, anybody out there, who did you think? Go ahead and let us know. He is at Inside the League, at Right Step ADV. Tell us why I'm wrong. Tell us why the Patriots shouldn't, why it should be any of these other teams, why it wasn't one of these top 6. Let us know your thoughts. Again, leave us your comments, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's on Apple Podcasts, whether it's just on Twitter. Let us know. We love to hear it. Again, we love to hear we're wrong. We also love to hear we're right. So again, if you agree with me, make sure you let me know. It's good to pump that up. But again, Patriots had now, again, all these, again, we're talking, 3 playoff teams. That goes a long way in, winning that best draft award is getting that draft right. We saw it. And again, among the best draft, we're going to get those Bart lists. We're going to give some college awards. Neil is going to be there for it all, hosting. Get Neil up on the mic, wearing the fancy jacket, looking good up there. So make sure you make it to Indy. We will look forward to seeing there. Lots to do on the podcast before then. Some great guests coming up. So make sure you're tuning in. Make sure you got it set. Make sure you got all your calendar set. And don't just watch football along the way. Just make sure you're scouting. Agents, before we go, make sure you go check out Agent Live 360. It is at agentlive360.com for everything you need for your agency, from players to coaches, managing profiles, tracking invoices, sending invoices, getting paid, keeping up on every element of your entire agency. Notification emails, file, folder, storage, ROI, transactions, invoices, calendar, contracts, teams, reps, everything all in one spot for you. That is Agent Live 360. Hop on, request a demo. Yours truly will hop on, walk you through it. I can promise you we will talk some football as well. Sign up now with code TRIAL90 for a 90-day, 3-month trial at just $10 a month for Agent Live 360. That's at agentlive360.com. Go check it out now.